Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Let's get started with Week 62's Word Nerd Wednesday. Now, as I try to do on Word Nerd Wednesdays, I take a look at a word or two from the other episodes that week and do a deep dive. This time, we're going to start by looking at all the names of the place where we spent the last two Middle-earth Map Mondays, Rivendell. Lots of names to look at, but let's look at the common speech name first. The name that we heard when we first encountered this valley during Bilbo's adventures in The Hobbit, Rivendell. Well, here it is precisely what it sounds like. Riven is the past participle adjective, dating to around 1300, of the verb riv, which itself dates to around 1200 from a Scandinavian source and means tear in pieces or strike asunder. The adjective riven simply means split or cloven. Dell is an Old English word meaning hollow or dale, and dale, or Old English dale, means vale, valley, gorge. So Rivendell is a split or cloven valley, a valley with very steep sides, as we've seen. Rivendell is also the common speech translation of the Sindarin name Imladris. Now that name literally means deep dale of the cleft, and it's made up of two elements. We learn in, where else, Parma El de Lambaron 17, that the first element, Imlad, means deep valley, narrow valley with steep sides, gap, gully. Now we see that in Imlad Morgul, the Sindarin name for the Morgul Vale. The second element of the name Imladris, Ris, means cleft, cloven, or separate, and that's also from Parma El de Lambaron 17, but we don't see that element elsewhere. Now, according to an essay of Tolkien's called Eldarin Hands, Fingers, and Numerals and Related Writings, and found in Vinyard Tengwar number 47, Imladris is also glossed as Canyon of the Cleft. Finally, according to an unpublished letter cited on Tolkien Gateway, it's also glossed as Flat-Floored Valley of the Cleft. Well, in all these cases, the geographical picture of the valley is conveyed, and we can easily imagine it, rather like Lauterbrunnen in Switzerland, which appears to have served as a possible inspiration for Imladris, and we'll get back to that. Now, going back to Rivendell, I said that was the common speech name, but of course we know that's just the English representation of Westron. Just as Maura Lebingi is the Hobbitish name for Frodo Baggins, we can't expect that the men of Middle-earth referred to Rivendell as Rivendell. No, they called it Carningul. Now why not call it that? Well, Tolkien explains in Appendix F that he has translated all Westron names according to their senses. After all, he argues, all names if merely transcribed would seem to modern readers equally remote. For instance, if the Elvish name Imladris and the Westron translation Carningul had both been left unchanged. But to refer to Rivendell as Imladris was as if one now was to speak of Winchester as Camelot, except that the identity was certain, while in Rivendell there still dwelt a lord of renown far older than Arthur would be were he still king at Winchester today. Now, there are some more obscure names for this valley in other writings. In Parma El de Lambaron number 22, you thought I had a different one for you there, Tolkien has some linguistic notes that provide a Quenya name of Arkimbele, derived from the locative form in this line, Sinan Elessar Arranserra Arkimbelesse, meaning at present, King Elessar is at Rivendell. Would you like to leave a message? From the fact that Arkimbelesse means at Rivendell, we can draw the name Arkimbele for Rivendell itself. Now, in a rejected page of linguistic notes in Parma El de Lambaron number 22, Tolkien gives another Quenya name, Latimberista, meaning cut glen. But he said this name was never really used in practice. Instead, it was replaced by the Quenyerized form of the Noldorin name, Imbelaris for Imladris. Now finally, while we know about the House of Elrond in Imladris, do you know about its other name? In the Book of Lost Tales, it's referred to as Cottage of the Lost Play, or in Quenya, Marvanwa Tialieva. Now, Mar there simply means home. We see that element in Eldamar, Valimar, and more. Vanwa means gone, lost, departed, vanished, passed, over, passed away, dead. And if that element sounds familiar, it's because I read Galadriel's Lament as often as I can find excuses to do so, and it's in there, in the line, Si vanwa na romello vanwa Valimar, which means now lost, lost to those from the east is Valimar. Now how's that for getting both Vanwa and Mar in the same phrase, eh? The last one, though, isn't one that we see anywhere else. It's beautiful, though. The element tialie is said, where else, Parma El Delamberon 17, to mean mirth, play, or game. And this name for Elrond's house, Marvanwa Tialieva, dates back to the 1920s and remained the same even after Tolkien finished The Lord of the Rings, as it shows in later notes from the 1950s. Now, I mentioned earlier the inspiration that Lauterbrunnen in Switzerland might have served as the inspiration for Imladris. We have time, even though it's not really word nerd related, to look at that by pulling up letter number 306 that Tolkien wrote to his son Michael in 1968. I am delighted that you have made the acquaintance of Switzerland, and of the very part that I once knew best, and which had the deepest effect on me. The Hobbit's, Bilbo's, journey from Rivendell to the other side of the Misty Mountains, including the glissade down the slithering stones into the pine woods, is based on my adventures in 1911. And then Tolkien goes on to spell out a lot of the details of that trip that he took when he was 19 years old. We went on foot carrying great packs practically all the way from Interlaken, mainly by mountain paths, to Lauterbrunnen, and so to Mürren, and eventually to the head of the Lauterbrunnenthal in a wilderness of moraines. Now, he also mentions this same trip in letter 232, talking about how he journeyed on foot with a heavy pack through much of Switzerland and over many high passes. It was approaching the Aletsch that we were nearly destroyed by boulders loosened in the sun rolling down a snow slope. An enormous rock, in fact, passed between me and the next in front. That and the Thunder Battle, a bad night in which we lost our way and slept in a cattle shed, appear in The Hobbit. And on that not really word nerdery note, that does it for today's Word Nerd Wednesday. But come back next week as we wander the wide, wild, wonderful world of words weekly on Wednesdays. And if there is a word that you want to know more about, please let me know by emailing barliman@theprancingponypodcast.com. Please visit patreon.com/TolkienTimes to learn how you can support the show, get an ad-free feed, a monthly hangout with me, a bonus weekly episode, and a lot more. And then join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for Third Age Thursday as we continue reading poetry in The Lord of the Rings. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Please follow or subscribe in your podcast apps, and follow @Tolkien Times on all your social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.